Hi, hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Kim and this video is going to be a reading vlog for the entire month of June. Dana and Nikki run the Thrills and Chills book club and they officially for June have a theme of Camp Nightmare, which I'm very excited to take part in because they also have a bingo board that they've created. I'm going to try and get just like a bingo, a straight across wherever I possibly can, but then also just trying to fill as many squares as I can. I'm not going to aim for like a blackout or anything like that because I don't think I can read that many books, but we'll do our best. I will say that I actually just finished an audiobook a couple of days ago. I started this at the end of May, and I also started the ebook that I'm going to be talking about at the end of May too. So they both have kind of rolled over into June, but both of them meet prompts for this, which is perfect, and I will go over that. The audiobook that I finished is Everyone is Watching by Heather Gudenkauf. So we follow a variety of characters, and they all go on this game reality show where there's a chance for them to win $10 million. Like, this is life-changing money. So they each have their own reasons for going on this show and trying to win this money. They have to go through a variety of games like obstacle courses, puzzles, whatever the case may be. And people get eliminated, and there's a variety of game rules which I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's not necessarily pertinent to know for you to know the story. The contestants can also get, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like little advantages to help them get ahead in the game. One of them, surprisingly, being a knife, and but the contestant can use that knife in any way they want. So there is very much like a shocking kind of like dangerous risk to this game that even the show host didn't even anticipate. But anyways, so you hear from the show host and then the other two female characters. There was a dual timeline aspect to this, and I feel like the game piece was so satisfactory in this. Like, I read Catherine Steadman's The Family Game last year, and that one was just like, I was expecting more kind of twisted games that this really rich family was going to put this family through and this newcomer to the family through, and it just did not live up to those expectations of mine. But this, I am so satisfied with the amount of games. It was a very pleasant surprise. I did find that the final twist or reveal of it all to be a little bit lackluster, given how kind of just like amped up everything was in the book all the time. I ended up giving this 4 stars, which is a pretty decent rating for a thriller. I feel like I'm trying to get back into my thriller era, so also this month of June is going to be really good to help me get with that. And it meets the prompts of Camp Counselor, which is reading a book where there is, what is it called? Oh yes, like someone's an authority figure within the story, and the show host is the authority figure and also the producers, and the contestants kind of feel pressure to take part in these games even though they don't really want to, but there's the 10 million aspect involved too. So there's that aspect as well. And then it also meets Morning Announcements because I listened to this on audio, and Relay Race because it has a dual timeline piece. So the other book that I am currently reading on my e-reader right now is The Quiet Tenant, and I am really enjoying this so far. I'm like about 55% of the way in. We follow the perspective of 3 women, and they're all centered around this man who is not a good man. So one of the women is a woman that the man has abducted, and he's like keeping her in this shed is where we meet them. Look up trigger warnings before you jump into this book. The other perspective is we follow his daughter, and she's 13, I think it was, or 12, I think 13. And then we also follow the perspective of a girl who has a crush on this guy in town, and he will often go to her bar and just like have a drink and chat with her, and he shows like an entirely different side to her, and he shows an entirely different side to all 3 of these women, obviously. So everyone sees a different side to him. And the interesting thing about the way that this story is being delivered is that the daughter and the girl in town who has a crush on him is narrated in first person, but then the woman who is held hostage, who he's kidnapped and keeping from escaping, is actually narrated in second person, which is so fascinating. I like the different narration styles as I'm reading these different perspectives. This is honestly just like gripped me right away, but like right from the first page, I was like, this is really good writing. This is like my kind of writing style. I'm like engrossed in this. I want to know what's going on. It was really, really good to start. I will say that there's about 15% of this book in the first half that like the plot progression is really lacking. Like, you've kind of got everything established, and there was a bit of like a repetition at one point, but from the 40% mark onwards, I could not stop reading it. So I had to stop myself because I was like, I need to provide a halfway mark update. I just can't keep reading this and potentially finish it, you know? So the physical book that I'm reading is for another vlog, which hopefully I have put out by the time this video goes out, but I will essentially just keep reading the Quiet Tenant for the Thrills and Chills book club. And I have put out a poll yesterday, and I wanted somebody to pick, I just wanted people to pick my next audiobook because I finished Everyone Is Watching, and I was like, okay, I could either read Never Lie or She Started It. And I just don't know. I'm up for either option, but I do have the physical book for both of these and the audiobook for both of them through Everand. And so I was like, hey, I just need someone to pick for me. Just take this off my plate and pick for me. So I put out the poll, and then I'm just waiting for people to submit their votes right now. I'm just going to wait until tomorrow because my partner's family is coming over for dinner. And so I'm going to do some cleaning and whatnot, and I'm going to start one of these audiobooks. So I'll check it tomorrow morning, and whatever state the poll looks like, I'll just go with whatever book people have voted on the most. So I anticipate people will probably vote for Never Lie by Frieda McFadden because her books are really popular. People tend to really enjoy them, and I've actually never read one of her books before. So, but yeah, we'll just kind of see. I will tune in, I think, once I finish The Quiet Tenant, once I've started a physical book, and then once I've kind of gotten about, or I've decided which audiobook, and when I've gotten about halfway through that, whichever one it ends up being. Hi, it's been a lot of days since I have provided an update on this vlog. I'm really sorry. Life was definitely lifing the last couple of weeks. Or maybe last week. I don't even know what day it is in June right now. I think I'm about halfway through June. But I am very grateful that I've been able to finish a couple of books, but just haven't been able to provide any updates necessarily. So we're going to just go right into all these updates here. So starting with The Quiet Tenant. I finished this. I loved it so much. This was a very easy 5-star for me to give to this book. From the 40% mark onwards, I didn't want to, and I couldn't put it down. It was just so absolutely engrossing the way that this was written. I'm going to read whatever else this author has put out because, yeah, the writing was just exactly my cup of tea. The tone of this was also my cup of tea as well. It's very akin to Brother, not in the writing, but in the tone. I loved the concept of this, following along with 3 people who all know the same man, but just from a different perspective. He's someone's crush, he's a father, and he's someone's absolute worst living nightmare. And I also loved how this ended. It was a perfect, satisfying ending. And yeah, it was just great. I feel like I have like a bit of a book hangover from it a bit, to be honest. So I'm like looking at all my other reads, and I used the scavenger hunt to pick my next read, which I'll talk about in a moment. The prompts that it met was nature walk because it has nature on the cover, and stargazing because it also has the night sky on the cover. So last I checked in, I think I mentioned this. I could easily just go back and watch it, but I'm just going to speculate. I talked about a poll that I put up on my YouTube asking my subscribers to pick the next audiobook that I should listen to. I said She Started It or Never Lie by Frieda McFadden. Everybody picked Never Lie by Frieda McFadden, which I'm really not surprised by at all. So I started it and finished it. It was a very quick listen. So we follow Trisha and Ethan, not both perspectives. We just follow the perspective of Trisha and then the therapist whose home they are thinking of buying, and her name was Adrian, I think, or Adriana. Trisha and Ethan are looking to buy a home. They're newlyweds, and they go to look at this house that is kind of secluded, and it's a previous therapist's home, and they get stranded there. Trisha discovers tapes from the therapist, and on these tapes are what led up to her disappearance, I believe, but there's also some weird things going on in the house while they're staying there. That's literally all you need to know going into this book. And that you hear from the perspective of the therapist too, through the tapes, but then also the past timeline. When I was halfway through this book, I was getting irritated because I was like, oh my god, this twist is so obvious. And if that's what the twist is going to be, I'm going to feel so burnt by everybody because everyone talks about her books and how incredible the twists are and everything. So I was going to be really, really annoyed. And then at about 70% in, I want to say maybe, things start happening and it is absolutely not what it seems. And I was very pleased that Frieda McFadden just pulled a fast one on me. The audiobook of this was great. It was a great popcorn thriller. I think if you're in a thriller reading slump, go ahead and pick this book up because it will just help get you right back on track. It surprised me so much that I'm going to give it a 4-star, purely because I just was blindsided by it. Was the writing impeccable or noteworthy? No, not necessarily, but it was definitely fast-paced and I appreciated that. This meets the prompts of Bonfire, because it has red on the cover. Also Camp Counselor because it's about a person in a position of power, so that therapist. And then Morning Announcements because I listened to this on audio, and Relay Race because we get dual timelines. So now I want to talk about the scavenger hunt prompt. Because I picked a book, I went through the scavenger hunt, and I didn't film myself doing it because I had a suspicion that it would take me a bit and it would be a little bit chaotic to just go through everything. And I also did a massive library haul, which I don't have with me here, but I was like, okay, I have a couple thriller books in here that can meet some of these prompts on the bingo card. So I want to, and I just finished reading The Quiet Tenant, which also shook everything up because that was a 5-star, and the 5-star previous, it was like just, I was on the struggle bus trying to get through that scavenger hunt with my previous 5-star. So anyways, so I did it off camera and figured it out for myself, but the last 5-star that I read was The Quiet Tenant. And then the last letter of the title of that read has to be the first letter of the title of the next book. So Quiet Tenant, it's a T, the last letter, and then Turn of the Key. Because I was like looking at my shelf and I own a Turn of the Key, and I was thinking I could go for a reread. I could do that. So I was like, okay, I got Turn of the Key. So the next step is the overall color of that cover is going to be the color of the cover of the next book you'll pick. Wow, I'm not explaining this very well at all. Dana does such a great job at explaining it in her video, so go watch that if you want a better explanation, but just follow along, stay with me. Prominent color on Turn of the Key is gray, and I have Never Lie, which I had just finished and has the same color theme. Now, the page count of that book, which is 284 pages, the next book that you pick has to be 10 pages within that one, either above or below. I just picked up Diavola from my library by Jennifer Thorne, and that one is within 10 pages. The author's initials of the book that you picked for that one has to be one of the initials of the author of the book that you eventually choose. So Jennifer Thorne, JT, and I was looking at my stack from that I got from the library. I saw a book and I was like, oh my god, this meets other prompts. Holly Jackson's 5 Survive. So it is YA. We follow a group of friends who are on a camping trip and they have this big old RV that they're taking with them. The RV breaks down somewhere and secrets essentially come to light amongst these friends, and I'm assuming 5 of the 6 of them survive. As far as the next books that I am reading, I have She Started It by Sian Gilbert on e-reader, and then I have it in audio format, and then I have the physical book. So I literally have every possible opportunity to read or listen to this book. So I've started that and it's going fine so far. I don't really have any opinions on it right now because I've only read the first couple of chapters. And on audio, I have not started anything yet. But what I think I will do is I will listen to a True Crime Garage podcast. Listening to a True Crime Garage podcast will help me meet the prompt of Drama Night, which is to, I think, listen to a podcast or a true crime thing along those lines. But that is all of my updates. It's a lot all at once. I'm so sorry, and I'm so sorry I subjected you to my explanation of the scavenger hunt thing. But anyways, I will provide an update once I get halfway through 5 Survive and She Started It. And I might also provide an update once I've selected what audiobook I'm going to listen to next. If I pick up an audiobook, I will chat with you all later. I have updates. Life, it's been a week and life has just been lifing like crazy, and I'm excited for this upcoming weekend because I'm going camping with my boyfriend and our friend. I also have some reading updates. I finished She Started It by Sean Gilbert, and I begrudgingly finished it. And I say begrudgingly because about 15% in, I had a feeling that I should have DNF'd it and I should have listened to my gut. So I'll start with what this book is about. Group of women fly out to this island because they receive an invite from Poppy, who they used to go to school with. None of them have heard from Poppy for like 10 years. The last time they saw Poppy, it was not good. Nothing good happened during that situation. They don't really think about it because Poppy, in the invitation, it's like for her hen party or bachelorette, she says, everything's been paid for, you ladies just need to show up. And they're just like, woo, let's go. So they arrive to the island and you quickly kind of find out, you have suspicions about what happened the last time that they saw Poppy, and just kind of the reasoning for why they're there. And yeah, it's just kind of, it does that thing that Lisa Jewell does where you're kind of led along a path and you're not, at no point does the author try to like stray you from the path. Like basically the direction you're going is like exactly what to expect, which is fine if you're into that. I think if you like Lisa Jewell books, you'll probably like this. This also had a very similar kind of campy vibes as the writing retreat, like where it just kind of goes in a direction that's just very off the walls a little bit. And that's fine. It's a book. It's not supposed to be realistic, but it's just very similar, these two. So I would also say if you like the writing retreat, you might like this book. This just didn't work for me in any way. It just wasn't flowing for me. And so I woke up one morning and I just decided like, I am just going to immersively read this for a bit. So I listened to the audiobook, read it with my eyes, which helped me get a lot done in it. I literally read half of the book sitting there that one morning. But thinking, reflecting on that half, it was like nothing really, it was okay. As far as my enjoyment factor of it, it was just fine. I don't know why I kept just going through with this book. I'm just curious. My curiosity gets the best of me because I'm like, oh, is the author going to try and, pull some really interesting twist? Kind of like what Frieda did for Never Lie. Like, you're led along one way to think something, but then like something else completely different happens. Finished it and it was just like really disappointed with the twists and the delivery of the story. I felt like it dragged at some points. Is very predictable. I unfortunately feel like I don't have a ton of great things to say about this book, so I think I should just like close it out at that and just be like, this book wasn't for me. And that's okay. That's totally fine. I will say, and I see a lot of people online in the reviews say this, so this is not going to be anything new, but really truly all the characters are the same. The only way I could distinct between the characters was memorizing the name and what their occupation was associated with that name. That was the only way I could tell them apart. They all speak the same. They all just kind of like behaviors, mannerisms, like everything. It's all the same. Don't ask me what I liked about this because I unfortunately don't have anything. This meets the remote location bingo prompt because it was on this remote island that they had to like boat out to. It's this beautiful resort type location. And then it also meets Day on the Lake because it has water on the cover. There's also a prompt about like it being a friend group. Friendship bracelets, I think, is the prompt, and obviously we follow a group of friends in this book. I feel like I knocked off a few prompts with this book, which I'm happy about, but also happy I'm done it. The other book that I had on the go when I last checked in was 5 Survived by Holly Jackson. I DNF'd this one. I got exactly halfway, I took stock, and I was like, we're just gonna put this down. We're just gonna walk away from it because again, I was on the struggle bus getting through She Started It, and I was like, I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing that. I talked about what this book is about in my last update, so I won't touch on that at all. But what I will say is that the writing in this just like felt like wading through mud. There was a lot of words to describe one thing going on. I know people say this sometimes about authors, but this is one where it really truly was like, she's trying to meet a word count. The amount of times I had to hear about the curtains, or Red, who is like our main character, her and her forgetfulness, or just the way that these different characters in the book carry themselves, or the fact that Red doesn't have a mom, and so, you know, nobody can talk about their mom around Red, and like just all this repetition. I was really disappointed in this because I liked the pacing of the reappearance of Rachel Price. Like, I found every chapter it was just kind of something new was going on. Not to say like I can't read a thriller that doesn't have something new presented every chapter, but it's just the way everything was delivered in Five Survive was just not jiving with me. This does meet the prompt for, I think it's new campers, but I'll give myself like half a dot because obviously I read half of it. And I did do the scavenger hunt, so I got that prompt as well. So last time I checked in, I talked about how I was going to listen to True Crime Garage to meet the prompt of Drama Night. And I did. Okay, so on to new things. This weekend, I am going camping and I am bringing along The Hike by Susi Holiday, which I'm really excited about. Two sisters and the sisters' respective husbands, and they go on this hike together. This hike is an attempt to just spend some quality time with each other, repatch things, but then suddenly get lost high on a terrifying ridge. Tensions spill over with disastrous consequences. Apparently only 2 of the 4 make it down, so you kind of figure out what happened. This weekend, my boyfriend friend and I are going to go on a hike, so kind of very meta-esque, I guess, if you will. I look forward to being in nature and reading a book about being in nature and getting lost in nature. So yeah, that is pretty much the update from this previous week. I look forward to catching up with you and letting you know how the hike goes, both the one that I will be doing and the one that I'm reading about when I get back next week. Hello. Okay, so I have quite a few updates. Camping was wonderful. Thank you for asking. I had a great time. I had some s'mores, which I believe meets the s'more prompt on the bingo board. I didn't record myself eating said s'more or marshmallows because literally nobody needs to see that on the internet, so those things are messy, you know? We also went on a really beautiful hike. We also saw a bear paw print, which was in the B-roll previously, which was really unnerving, but also pretty cool at the same time, because it's like the time of year where everything is still melting, snow is still melting and whatnot, so any animal tracks are just kind of like more obvious in the ground. So that helped me meet the field day prompt as well. And then there was another prompt to do with like a summer drink, and I've met that one. I've been meeting that this whole video because water is like my go-to drink for everything and gotta stay hydrated, you know? So I was able to meet that bingo spot as well. However, I did manage to finish The Hike by Susi Holiday. Sorry I didn't provide a halfway point update. I just was like reading this a ton while I was camping. I got about 2/3 of the way done, and then when I came home, I just finished it. And it was also kind of like, this is a perfect thriller in the sense where the synopsis on the back gives nothing away. It tells you just enough to kind of get you interested in the story. But even at the halfway point, like I wouldn't have been able to give any like plot information per se, aside from what you see in the synopsis, because they just don't want to give anything away accidentally. I really enjoyed this. It was like very, like I went on a hike with my friends and I read a book about a group of people going on a hike. It was just, it was perfect. It was the perfect book to read for this weekend. I think I'm gonna land on a 4.25. I'm still debating on my rating for it, but loved it. I like that this is the book that I've has gotten me out of like a treacherous slump. After 5 survive and she started. This was really enjoyable. I liked the twists in this. I could not predict what was going to happen. I had like a suspicion, but even then, like right up to the last page, you don't really like, what you assume is going to happen is not what is going to happen. So I really liked this quite a bit. I think Susie Holiday did a really great job just like pulling a fast one on the reader, very similar to kind of like Frieda McFadden style, I think, in that way. I just overall really enjoyed the setting of this book. Obviously, given my weekend activity, it was perfect for it, but I believe that some of her other books are kind of like an outdoorsy type setting as well, so I'll definitely be picking up more from her, but definitely recommend, and it's a quick read at only about 250 pages too. This helps meet the prompt of Day on the Lake because there is a lake on the cover, and then Tie-Dye, which is a book with your favorite color, and one of my favorite, I have 2 favorite colors. One of them is green and the other one is blue, and so this has that color on there too. So for today, I'm actually taking part in the Thrills and Chills book club's reading sprints. Dana and Nikki very kindly invited me to join them, so that's what I've been doing. We've been having a lot of laughs. It's been a lot of fun so far. It's been helping me reach or complete the prompt for the romantic suspense slot on the bingo board because I'm listening to the Coppersmith Farmhouse book by Devney Perry, and that is going pretty good so far. I'm almost 40% in. We follow Gigi and her daughter Rowan. They moved to a small town in Montana. She's from Spokane, so kind of like big city-esque, and somebody that she was very close with, Ben, had passed away and he left his farmhouse to her. So she up and moved there. She encounters Jess, who is the local sheriff there. It's a little bit insta-lovey, but I'm just going with it. I'm going with the flow. Also, Jess is a fairly assertive male character, which I'm still determining if I like that or not, like enjoy following along with a character who is that way, but so far so good. The suspense factor of it all hasn't quite set in yet, but they definitely are getting to know one another, and they're very like already kind of like calling each other baby and honey and things like that. And so yeah, like it went from like 0 to 60 pretty quick there. So there's some crimes that are happening within the small town, and I think that that's what's going to factor into the suspense portion. And I think Jess is going to have to be the one to figure out kind of who's doing what and what is going on. So I'll let you know once the suspense factor of it all kind of picks up, but so far so good. I'm enjoying it. Hi, okay, so I finished the Coppersmith Farmhouse book, and I liked it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It was my very first romantic suspense ever. I don't really have anything necessarily like constructive to say per se about this book because I'm not super familiar with romantic suspense. So, you know, take my rating for what it is, but I enjoyed my time with it. It's like an enemies to lovers, but the enemies portion of it was pretty like, it was pretty soft, I would say. Like, yes, they were like, they didn't like each other for a bit, but it was fairly quickly that they got over that enemies bit and just wanted to be with each other. I would say that the suspense portion or mystery portion of this book it was fine. It wasn't bad. Like, again, I have no basis because romantic suspense is something I'm very unfamiliar with, but I did enjoy it enough where like I want to keep reading in the series because it was a nice, relaxing listen. So that is the last book that I'm reading, part of this readathon. This was a lot of fun. We'll do a bingo board check-in here, so I'll scoot down over. The summer love prompt was for the Coppersmith Farmhouse book, so I had a really good time. I had a very successful reading month. There were a lot of books that I really enjoyed this month for this readathon, whereas the last time they put out a bingo board, I just strived to get like a bingo, whereas this time I was like, I'm just going to try and meet as many of the prompts as I can. So I feel like I did a pretty good job. So I think this is where I'm going to close it out. I had a ton of fun this month. I got some pretty good books under my belt, some 4 stars, a 5-star. I'd say it was fairly successful. So thank you very much for hanging out to the end. Let me know if you have read any of these books previously, or if you even took part in this readathon. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope you're enjoying what you're reading, and I'll see you in the next video.